Sweet utter fuck, this is gonna be a hell of a review to write and make and record. Welcome to Ray Run Does Music, where today we're doing a hell of a commission from my friend Nate. We are reviewing the entire Fortnite soundtrack, or at least the entire Fortnite soundtrack up until, when did I finish writing this review? It wasn't too long ago. About a month ago, I think. A little bit into Season 5, or Chapter 5, excuse me. You're probably hearing and thinking, what does that include? Is it jam tracks, festival songs, lobby music? What's all included in the Fortnite soundtrack? And to answer your question, I'll just list off what's included pure and straight for you. We're going to be talking about, I mainly used a playlist for reference here. The playlist that I had found had a majority of Fortnite music, or at least lobby and newer original jam track music that starts with Chapter 1 Season 6's eerie lobby music and goes all the way up to the Rocket League theme for Rocket Racing. I've also included talking points for the likes of the original lobby music in Chapter 1 as well. Essentially, I'm doing a review of the playlist itself, but looking at it, I'm going to try my best to remember to put the playlist down in the description for you as well. Hopefully it grows with time. Hopefully it gets updated, because honestly, banger songs. I think it's as extensive as it gets, minus a couple of unlisted videos, which I'm assuming are earlier seasons, which I looked up individually. This is going to be a pretty beefy review, so I'm going to be cutting it up into different sections for each chapter, going 1 through 5. This might not be how a typical review really goes, so just bear with me overall, but let's get into things with Chapter 1. So with the beginning, I feel like this chapter is equally an example of the best and worst tracks for Fortnite lobby music. You, of course, have the nostalgic OG lobby and the OG remix, the eerie Halloween tracks for Season 6 of Chapter 1, but we start to see more character in the beginning as well. Would become the game's signature style of character with all of the emote tracks, such as Disco, Twist, or Best Mates. I initially was worried that having too many of these, just because they're counted as songs, they're listed as originally as songs, would sort of bring down the overall vibe and energy as they're made for literally the emote themselves, but they still manage to feel very early game, very Chapter 1. They're basic, but not in a negative sense. They're basic in the sense that they feel about as polished as the game was at first, and that lack of polish isn't bad by any stretch of the means. That lack of polish gives the early game, the early bits of soundtrack, that identity. There's loads of general whimsy to be had, especially with this first iteration of the game being largely devoid of any of the big story elements that would come later on, giving it an innocent feeling almost. For this chapter at least, the later emote-inspired /focus tracks started to remain at a consistent level of decent, but the unique tracks flourished in a major way. Coral Chorus is of course an undeniable banger that everyone can agree on. I'm pretty sure it has literal millions of views and streams on Spotify and YouTube. But what about Neo World or Afterburner, two of my personal favorites? These songs breathe the essence of the early, almost unknown atmosphere of what Fortnite would become, and felt like the sort of epic background track to racing through a city, fighting for survival, the core experience of the game before it got insanely complicated. There are plenty of tracks to talk about in general when it comes to Chapter 1, such as the ultimate climax song, The Finale, or underrated emote tracks like Sweet Dreams, but it's hard to go on more about them outside of general compliments I've already given. When it comes to its music, Fortnite pretty much hits the nail on the head for their identity and attitude and emotions it evoked with the earliest tracks. Holidays, Origins, Cape Crusaders, and Major Lazer, they got it down pat. Chapter 2 is here, and this is the season where the composers really started to step up their game, incorporating more elements into the songs and creating genuine songs that weren't just stuck as just Fortnite core. With songs like The End kicking things off, you knew a tone shift was sure to come, and come it did. Later tracks such as Storm King and Queen's Anthem reek of power and unadulterated grandioseness. Even the bass songs such as the Unreal lobby music has more oomph behind it, fitting the slightly more serious tone around the Battle Royale mode at this point. And I think the game's atmosphere benefited from this, as opposed to suffering from it, as some people tend to say, because a lot of people think that as soon as Fortnite got serious, it got bad. No, you're wrong. Fuck off, shoo away! A lot of people will stay true to the beliefs of seriousness and big-time events ruining the game, but I think that the game has received positives in the gameplay, story, and of course the music departments because of that seriousness. That's not to say there still isn't the trademark silliness to be found. I mean, look at Battle Breakers, Mellow, or Bunny Pounds for examples of that. It's an almost 50-50 split of seriousness against campiness now being shown off, with Midas and the gang moving through their own plot to the sound of orchestras, while sunny beach escapes and cat-riddled catastrophes, zing, wait around every corner. I've got to say it again, the expansion to the overall instrumental gallery helps Chapter 2 out in a massive way. There's so many different genres and feelings represented, with hard rock even getting some solid rep with banger stuff like the the Banger Lobby or Storm. Now, I will say I'm not a big fan of the Future OG remix personally, or some of the later emo tracks like Billy Listen or Keyed Up, but they still fit the overall themes and soundscape despite not having as much quality packed in compared to their Season 1 comparisons. There are so many underrated tracks, from IO Attack to Orbital to Drop In, and so much more. I honestly think this chapter has the best overall representation for genre and accessibility, making it very enjoyable and definitely not a skip. Now we're at chapter 3, and unfortunately we're hitting a bit of a downturn. I feel like the third chapter of the game lacked a large majority of the soul that the first two had, and there's no real reason or easy to place answer for that. Cloudy Day is an example of more emotional tracks with lyrically driven parts moving their way into things and further diversifying things, but not many tracks come to mind in terms of memory compared to earlier or later chapters. For whatever reason, they're all just kind of there. It takes some digging, but good tracks are waiting for you, such as with I Just Wanna Fight or Before You, but the amount of songs worth going to for actual listening or lobby music making, it goes down in a big way. Take Me Higher is another good one though, nowadays being used as a base for a lot of jam stage efforts in Fortnite Festival with a very solid and steady beat and chorus. A lot of the songs, maybe intentionally, maybe not, boil down to club-esque, especially in the middle of the season, but nothing really does enough to stand out. Going into more recent seasons and of course chapters, we are here with chapter 4, and the diversity increases even more right out of the gate. Crooked Grind especially holds a unique sound and tempo in comparison to the previous season and its overall lack of change or nuance. Out of all the lobby music, general themes besides the OG, I feel like chapter 4's island theme is a definite contender for the most recognizable, in terms of its epic sound, pun intended, as well as general connection, with this season being a return point for many players, myself included. More characterization was a key part of the music pieces for the season as well, with a nearly anime opening level of hype that High Stakes Club emits, perfectly fitting the 3-member group to a T. And of course everybody's favorite Rideable Glider soundtrack, Future Dreams, and its dreamy lo-fi beats. Even the FNCS tracks take on a life of their own and some of the most intense music in overall sense since Chapter 2's soundscape. This entire chapter had nothing but bangers, where even the collab tracks such as the Kid Laroi or Coachella tracks had the essence of the chapter down in a way that hasn't been done since then, in terms of like artists coming in, but I don't think we've actually really had any artists / Fortnite collaborations music-wise with actual songs. If that makes sense. Lady Gaga, give us a Fortnite original song. Do it, you fucking bitch. I'm kidding, don't hurt me. My only complaint is that some of the music itself was locked behind odd unlockable situations such as crew packs, but the music itself is second to none. I just really despise stuff like that being locked away. I want the music! Finally, we hit chapter 5. This is still a very fresh chapter with a few tracks released, seeing as though we haven't even broken through the first season at the time of writing this. But identity is a continuing factor for 2 months in a row as we get 2 months. I think I meant chapters, whoopsies. Or did I mean months, since the chapter began? I don't know. As we get more early Fortnite-esque dedication to the music surrounding the society and underground aesthetics. The island theme sticks to a general, overall grandiose atmosphere with tinges of deeper bass and orchestral work, and it gives it a more defiant tone than others. While the contrasting rocket racing and Lego themes give off this unmistakable energy of discovery and the unknown, being relatively separate from the season's core ideas, fitting perfectly with their branched off individual status as game modes. Of course, the character themes are the highlight of the chapter here, with Hope, Valeria, and Oscar receiving the theme treatment thus far, each track effortlessly capturing their attitudes in rebellious, high society dominating ways. We've yet to receive official tracks to my knowledge for Montauk or the Midnight Duelist, which has me very excited to see them hopefully get something eventually done. Overall, Fortnite and the team behind the music know how to capture the eclectic, ever-changing nature of the game with ease. There is a lot to take into account in this case specifically, with looking at emote tracks too, so clutter is bound to pop up. It's almost 200 songs, if I remember right. But almost all the chapters had a plethora of legitimate music to re-listen to that genuinely stood out. It's hard to properly rate a soundtrack this big and expansive compared to, say, the Persona 5 soundtrack review I did, given that one's dependency on stings and jingles, but I'll give it my best attempt by giving the Fortnite soundtrack an 8 out of 10. And that's the review. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. If you guys have been playing the new chapter, at the time we're recording this, just yesterday, the Titan hand popped out of the ground and I spent an obscene amount of time just whacking the piss out of it with a pickaxe. It's a great time. Tell me what your favorite skin is. I don't know. I hope you're having a good day. Hope you're staying hydrated. I'll see you next time.